Welcome back to Cricket Aviation. My name's Jim Payne, and in this video we're going to go over the fit and installation of the nose cone. Now, a lot of the videos that I've been taking recently, a lot of it was filmed over a long period of time. So even this video, there's several parts of it that were filmed months apart. And even some of the finishing parts of the nose cone, such as creating the mount, I'm not covering in this video because that's really part of my battery mount fabrication video that will be upcoming, where I actually make the mount that attaches to my battery box that secures the nose cone to the airplane. But we're going to go over the entire fit and finish of the nose cone. You're going to get to see the plug that I created that I do fit on the airplane. And then I do take a mold from that, and then you'll get to see the first fiberglass part that I did take off of that mold that I used to make this nose cone right here. So we're going to go over all that, and again, I've tried to get most of these videos that I've been working on recently into some sort of an order, or at least some form of start to finish, because again, I started working on the nose cone, I went and worked on the instrument panel, I came back and worked on the battery box, I went and worked on the canopy. And so I was having to jump all over the place because I couldn't do certain things or finish certain things until other things were done, such as the mount for the nose cone had to be completed after I made the battery box, but I had to make the nose cone and get it fit on before I could make the battery box to get the mount installed. So again, I'm trying to make some sense of these videos in some sort of order, and I think it's going to work out okay. So in this video, like I said, we're going to go over the fit and finish of the actual nose cone itself, all the way up to it being painted, but the actual nose cone mount will not be done until a future video, and I believe it's going to be part of the battery mount that I fabricated that's going underneath the nose cone. So I'm going to take the camera and come over here and just show you a few things, just so you can get a feel of what this actually looks like now that it's even more complete than it is in this video. So let me grab the camera and let me show something up close here. So here you can see I actually have the nose cone completely finished. The mount's done, it's bolted to the airplane, and the fit and finish is complete. It fits really nice, it looks really good. And you can also see I did some of the work on the pylon fairings. Now, I do some of the work on the pylon fairings in this video also, because one of the things I did is I fit pylon fairings onto the plug that I had stuck on the front here. Again, to go through the whole thought process of if I could put any kind of fillets in here on the nose cone in the mold when I created it, and you'll find out in the video I just decided it wasn't worth it. It was going to be too much work and too much of a complication. And the fact is that now that I've got the nose cone finished and I'm working on these pylon covers, I really decided that I'm not going to have to take this nose cone off nearly as much as I thought I would. In fact, I've gotten to the point now where I don't believe I will be taking this nose cone off unless I have to do actual repairs to the airplane, like replace the battery or do something with wiring in the airplane. Otherwise, I'm not planning on taking off this nose cone. And originally I had planned on trying to make it as removable as possible so I could take it off each flight and charge the battery and actually open it up and get into there, but I've decided that's not even going to be an option. So I did want to show you this. You can see I've got, again, both the pylon covers done. And I've got tape here, on the nose cone itself, just to prevent any scuffing of the paint that I have on there. And I'm just getting ready now to start working on doing some fillets that are going to be part of the engine cowling, because I'm trying to finish up the engine cowlings since I now have, basically this whole front now complete. It's a matter of finishing the engine cowlings here and make sure that they fit over the top of here properly with some kind of a fillet. And I do have all the fasteners in here, and I do have a video where I go over the installation and completion of these pylon covers, so that will be in a future video also. So let me show you the mold too before we get started, because I didn't really cover in this video anything about the mold that I made for this. And part of the reason was I was working on a bunch of molds at the same time. I was working on a fuel tank mold, I was working on wingtip molds, I was working on horizontal stabilizer molds, and so it got very intense into just trying to get the molds done, and it was a time-consuming process, and they were all basically made the same. And I'm not really gearing my videos toward people who want to make molds, because again, I'm trying to make these parts so that you can buy them from me, so you don't have to create a mold, because making molds is a real pain. It's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. So let me get the mold. I'll show you what that looks like before we start the video here. So this is what the mold looks like that I used to make this first part for this nose cone. There's not much to say about it other than, I gel coated it. I, made a box that it's in, and I, fiberglassed everything, put resin on everything. So the mold turned out really good, but I do have this little post down here, and my goal was to try and fabricate the entire nose cone out of fiberglass, including the recess that's supposed to be in the front where you attach a bolt or nut to be able to attach the nose cone to the airplane, and also create the cavity there that was going to be, the reference point for the pitot system. Now that didn't work at all. My main reason is because there was too much surface area and too much tension in this area that when I fiberglassed the nose cone, I couldn't get it out. I was able to release it on the sides just fine, but then when it got down here to the end, I just could not get this to pop off. So what I ended up doing is I had to take a drill and actually drill around the outside of this post and drill out the nose cone so that I could pop it out. And then you'll see in the video where I made an aluminum insert that, I don't know if you can see it there, but there's an aluminum insert that I put into the and epoxied into the nose of the fiberglass nose cone. Just to be able to give myself an attachment point. And what I've decided to do in the future is actually make an aluminum insert that I'll set into the mold here, and then I'll do all the fiberglass around it. And since that aluminum piece isn't going to stick to this post, I should be able to just pop the whole nose cone out of here, and the aluminum insert then that is used for the mount will pull out with the nose cone and be actually fabricated as part of the nose cone itself. So I did just want to show you that because this isn't in the video. So we're going to go ahead and start the video now, and I'll show you how I actually did the fit and installation of the CriCri nose cone. So I started working on the nose cone. I cut out on the CNC machine what is essentially the plug for the nose cone form that I'm going to make. And I fiberglassed it, I did some Bondo on it, I just rough sanded it to shape, and then I decided to fit it on the front of the airplane here just to check the fit. But the other thing I was trying to do is figure out if I could add to this form some kind of fillet around here where this Pylon skin is going to come and intersect the nose cone here. And that's why I thought I'd record this, since I am going to go ahead and make the sheet metal pieces that go on here, and I'm going to fit them onto the pylons and slide them down until they hit the nose cone. I'll trim them around the edge so that I can at least see where the airfoil shape is going to hit on and around the pylon that goes over by the nose cone. Now, one of the things I ran into is that I started looking at this and realized that, the airfoil shape max thickness is somewhere right in here. And so what's going to happen is if I try and do a fillet around it, there's a very good chance that it will make it so that this plug, when I create the mold, would end up being, a negative mold across the top here if I were to form a fillet all the way around the airfoil shape, and that would require that I need a two-piece form then for fiberglassing the nose cone, which I'm kind of trying to avoid. I'd rather just do a one-piece nose cone mold, so that when I make the fiberglass nose cone, I can just fiberglass it and pop it out and be done, and not have a two-piece mold that I have to not only make, which is a lot more complicated. Now, I've seen some other builders looking at videos on the internet where they do have some kind of a fillet around here. The question is, how much of a fillet can I do? And does it even make sense to do it? So what I'm intending to do right now is I'm going to cut out the airfoil shape, at least the flat sheet metal piece that's supposed to go over this that gets bent into the airfoil shape. And I'm going to bend it in the airfoil shape, and I'm going to come over to this side here where I've got the engine mount off, and I'm just going to slip it down on here, trim it around the bottom, and then mark around on the nose cone exactly where that intersection is. Making sure that I have that airfoil shape not tilted down or up, and that it's exactly parallel with the engine mount here. So since I was going to start working on that, I thought I'd film this little part. and then we'll see what we can actually do with creating a fillet here or not. There's a chance that I might not even bother at all. I mean, the original plans just have the nose cone looking like this. You just put the pylon covers over the top, you trim them so that they fit around here, and then you put some kind of seal around there. And then there does end up being a little bit of a hole back here that I think you have to put some kind of maybe aluminum piece attached to the front of frame 1 that sticks out behind here and fills this little gap, because even the airfoil shape coming over here, it thins out down here, and I think it wouldn't completely cover that. But I'm trying to work through this right now because I really want to get this mold done so that I can get a fiberglass nose cone completed. But thought I'd show you this. I'm going to go cut these airfoil shapes out. We'll get one bent, we'll slide it over the top, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So I cut out the piece of aluminum that I'm going to use to create the fairing that goes over the pylons here. This is 366 millimeters by 12 inches. So I just roughly cut 12 inches for the height. I know I have to trim off the bottom a fair amount. I'll probably have to trim the top when I'm done too. But I wanted to leave a little bit of extra length here. But 366 is the trailing edge to trailing edge length of this airfoil that appears to be correct based on the little, I had done a little test piece earlier where I just took a little thin strip and wrapped it around there, measured it, and that seemed to be correct. There wasn't any dimensions in the plans for this specifically. So I did try and curve it just a little bit with my hands, just bending it over, but I think what I'm going to do is on both the top and bottom trailing edge here, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the bending brake and just put a little flat spot on the edge there where we're supposed to put some screws and some nuts to hold the two trailing edges together once it gets wrapped around. So I'm going to put those in first so that I have something that I can clamp to, so I don't have to try and hold this by hand when I fold it over. And then I think what I'm going to do is just lay it on the table and kind of press it down similar to what we did with the skin for the horizontal stabilizer. And I'll just keep pinching it down until I think it's about the right thickness that it'll fit nicely over the top of here with a good curve. So let me go play around with this and I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. Alright, I was able to bend this by hand, and I just folded it over by hand after I bent. You can see the little trailing edge I bent here. This is where we're supposed to place some screws. I don't want to drill any of the holes in it though, because I don't know exactly where those holes are going to be. Because you can see I have to cut this off, almost probably 2 inches here on the back side to get it to slide down. And if you look inside here, you can see those ribs down there. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put a screw about right here, which actually closes that gap. You can see on the top, and then there's another gap on the bottom that gets closed. But this isn't an exact science because this thing wants to float around on here quite a bit. So I'm going to have to figure out exactly how I'm going to get it positioned accurately between the trailing edge and the leading edge. But what I went ahead and did is I grabbed the rib, the aluminum framed rib that I had over here on this pylon here, and I moved it over here to the top, so at least I have two on here to try and help keep this thing aligned. But I'm just gonna start trimming this on the back side here, try and trim it so it fits against the fuselage as best I can. Right now I'm really just trying to get a mark and a line around the nose cone here, so I know exactly where this is gonna go, just to figure out what I'm gonna do next with the nose here. But yeah, this looks kind of neat. These are actually a little bit bigger than I thought they were going to be, but they're the size that the plans show. But yeah, let me get this cut off on this end, and I'll show you what it looks like when it gets a little bit better fit on the nose here. Okay, I've got the edge cut pretty well on the bottom side here, so I just slid it on and off. I kept using a Sharpie and just kept marking along here and taking a little bit more and more and more off, and then tried to put this into a drum. I have a drum sander, and I just tried to hold it in at this angle and basically work my way up to the line until I made sure that I had a snug fit at the top here and at the bottom. But see if I can get it off here with one hand. This is what it actually looks like. It creates kind of a crazy curve and crazy angle. I don't know of any other way to do this than by hand, because that would be a fairly difficult thing to do on the CNC machine, at least in the CAD software, to get it right anyway. So again, the goal was just to use this as kind of a template to just see where things ended up here on the nose cone and figure out if there's anything I can do in order to make a fairing around the outside of here, and if I even should. And that's kind of what I'm wondering right now. You can see I could probably get up to about the middle here and still use a single, single mold. The bottom here, the underside here looks like, underside here I could probably only get to about here, and it starts curving in. And of course the mold's got to be popped out square, aft from there. You can see the hole there in the back, the bottom. I oversized this cutout a little bit for the tube, so that could have been a little bit smaller, but there's still a gap there. And you can see there's still a gap at the top. So again, I'm not sure there's a whole lot I can do. I can check it when I take this off and see if I could have made that slot just small enough, or that may be covered by a piece of rubber gasket or something that would maybe fit around here. But I'm starting to think maybe it's not worth trying to do, at least in the mold for the nose, any kind of fillet or anything. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look at this a little bit more, because this is I don't know. It's getting more and more complicated as far as creating the nose cone, and I really don't, like I said, I don't want to create a two-piece mold if I don't have to. Of course the plans don't show you doing anything except this, basically. They don't even tell you to put any kind of rubber gasket or anything in there, but I've seen it on other airplanes where they have been able to fit some kind of gasket that this pushes up against, or it fits around the edge. I'm not even sure what kind of gasket material that is. So anyway, let me I'm going to do a little bit more fitting on here. Let's see if I can get a line marked around there. And I guess I'll just have to decide if I'm going to move forward with doing anything at all, except just making a mold basically of that nose cone right there. One of the things I forgot to mention here, I do have a reason for not wanting to create a mold that would be two pieces. And part of the reason is if it's a two-piece mold, it means it's not going to come off the front of this airplane easily. And I'm actually going to mount a battery on the front side of the engine mount up here that's going to power all of the electronics in my airplane, because I'm not going to have a generator, and because of the lightweight turbines that I have on here, I need to get weight in the nose of the airplane. So there's going to be a good sized battery in the front here that's going to fit in here, and I've already tested to make sure that's all going to fit properly. But what that means is I'm likely going to need to remove this nose cone quite often. So I'm going to do the nut inside of here that's going to attach to some kind of bracket on front of the battery mount, so that I can pop it in and off. Now I can't pull it on and off with these on here as it sits right now. These would have to come off, but then I got to figure out, well, is this need to come off after the cowling comes off? Because does the cowling fit over the top of here, which would be ideal. I think it would look better, but at the same time I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to make it so that these come off with just maybe 2 bolts and a couple screws on the front, and then I can just take the bolt off here and then take the front off. But I'm trying to make this as easily to remove as possible, and as I start creating fillets and things in here, I don't want to get myself into a situation where this thing won't come off. But at the same time, if I create a fillet that came out to here, then I could possibly take this off and leave this on, which would be perfect. But again, I don't think that I can do that, because again, with the curvature up here and the curvature on the bottom, even if I created a two-piece mold that had a fillet that came all the way out to here and then had this attach either underneath it where that slipped over, it wouldn't slip over, because again of the shape of the trailing edge here, with it being skinnier on the backside here than it is here. So either way, that doesn't work. So that's the dilemma of what I'm trying to figure out here when I'm creating this this nose cone, because again, like I said, I'd really like to be able to take it off fairly easily, because I'm going to have all kinds of plumbing going through here and electrical connections. I got to be able to charge this battery, so I got to have wires going somewhere to be able to charge it. Originally I was thinking I could just take the nose off, charge it overnight or something like that, but that might even be more of a pain than just figuring out how to do a remote charging where I can plug it in somewhere on the fuselage, through the outside of the airplane. Might be easier, but that's all the things I'm trying to figure out here. Just make it so that this can be removed easily with minimal taking apart all the cowlings and all these pieces. But like I said, I don't think I can get away with not taking these off. But Let me keep looking at this and I'll let you know what I come up with in the end. After doing some more thinking about how to finish this nose cone, with the intersection here between the pylon covers and the nose cone, I think what I'm going to do is absolutely nothing right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make the mold to make the nose cone basically to stock according to the plans, just like it is right here. And then what I think could be done is that there could be some fillet pieces made that fit around the airfoil shape here that maybe separate at the peak on either side, that would stick out enough to square off the end of this airfoil piece here, that might make it so that the nose cone could be removed and put back on easily with just removing the bolt on the front and not taking these off. It would have to, whatever fillet that was put in here would have to be attached, fiberglass to the nose cone itself, painted as part of that assembly. This would have to be cut off and it would have to fit over the top of it, which is not ideal. Obviously it'd be better if these fit over the top of the fillet, so that if water was running down here, it would run off the airplane and not have the potential of getting underneath, the fiberglass cover here. But that's the only way I can think that you could have it so that the nose cone could come off easily by itself. These could stay in place, and then you'd have to create a separate fairing that went across the back here that attached maybe to the fuselage or something. That maybe the front and rear fillet piece that you glued in here would be separated in the middle and be two pieces, one attached to the nose cone, one attached to the airplane. But I think that's a little bit too complicated to try and figure out how to get that into the nose cone mold. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense to do right now, but it certainly could be something that could be done to the nose cone before it was painted and before it was finished sanded, before you put it on the airplane. And I guess people can decide if they want to do that or not with with the nose cones if they buy them from me. But I think that's the best way to go, just to get this done, is to not worry about it, and then for right now just use a gasket or something that goes around here that this will slide into, or attach to at least seal at the bottom. And again, that's the way it's supposed to be done in the plan. So I'm going to keep going with this. I'm going to go ahead and take the nose cone off. I did mark on the nose cone where the intersection was here, and the shape is actually it's quite interesting. Hopefully you can see the tape mark there. But that's how it actually ends up intersecting with the nose cone. You can see that is definitely an issue for me to try and mold in a single piece mold. Any kind of fillet that is shaped like that would come back out of the mold properly. So it's actually pretty straight across the top here. So the top part wouldn't be too bad. It'd be once you get right about here, that would be a problem. So anyway, but that's the other thing I'm going to do right now, is just go ahead and just get the mold done for the nose cone itself. If I want to add to it and make another mold later on, I can, once we figure out exactly how things will fit together. But I would hate to make a nose cone that had the fillets in there built into the nose cone and then maybe it didn't quite fit. I did have this this engine mount is off about 3 degrees, as I mentioned in the engine video, where it's these are just slightly higher because the angle wasn't quite exact at, I think, 26.3 degrees or something, whatever it is. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and keep working on a nose cone mold here, and we'll come back once I have a nose cone created and we'll finish these covers for the pylons. Well, as you can see, I've started to fit the first nose cone that I created from the finished mold that I made. Now, originally this nose cone was supposed to be made out of, I believe it's balsa wood. I think it's almost entirely out of balsa wood. I don't know if there's some plywood in it or not, but it's basically supposed to be 4 pieces, flat pieces that are curved with a shaped, circular nose piece that it's all supposed to be pinned and glued together. Obviously, I made this out of fiberglass, made a mold. This is the first one I popped out. Now, I had some issues, and I think we should talk about it here because not only the fit process, but how it's going to be attached is kind of the same, but slightly different than the original that was in the plans. So just to catch you up to speed, so I popped this out of the mold. I went ahead and just
cut the edges off that were sticking out. I did put some tape around the outside just to kind of mark the distance from the edge where there's kind of a little bit of a a seam that went along there where the fiberglass wrapped around the edges of the mold when it was made, and that was a good reference line to know kind of where square was on the end of the nose cone. So I put some tape just a little bit of distance away so that I could keep that square, because once I trimmed off enough of the end of the nose cone where it attaches to where I couldn't see that line anymore, I had really no reference to know exactly if I was sanding more on one side or the other and possibly getting the nose cone to twist or turn in one direction. So the tape was just used as a reference while I'm sanding it. But when I made this, I had to make some changes, because originally the nose cone, which was supposed to have a block on the end here, and then it's supposed to kind of have this flared tube that's kind of glued into place. And what I tried to do in the mold was actually make it entirely out of fiberglass, including this little recess where the pitot tube connection is supposed to be. Now that was kind of an epic failure, because what happened is I couldn't get this out of the mold. There was too much surface area inside of this little cavity that I attempted to mold. So of course I was tempted to basically fiberglass that shape onto a post that was kind of built into the mold. It did not work. Again, I couldn't get it out, so what I ended up having to do inside the mold was cut off the inside part of this post that was sticking out that was fiberglass, and of course fiberglassing that little post was nearly impossible. It was just a mess. So I cut it off, then I was able to pop it out. And then what I did is on my lathe, I went ahead and cut out this little insert, flared the ends of it, cut it down on the inside, and then I put some little grooves on the inside of the tube here that you can't see because it was epoxied in. But what I did is I then just drilled out the end of the nose cone here, and I epoxied this in to the end of the nose cone, and this becomes the mounting point. So what's supposed to happen is on the nose here, there's actually an attach point. It's down underneath here, where there's supposed to be kind of a strap that comes out in a triangle formation, and then there's supposed to be a flat spot on the end with a bolt sticking out, and that bolt is supposed to come through this hole here, and then you're supposed to just put a nut on it. So you're just supposed to be able to slip the nose cone on here like so, onto the bolt that sticks out, and you're supposed to be able to put a nut on there and screw it tight against the airplane. I'm kind of going to do the same thing, but I'm having to change how the pitot tube is connected. So originally there's supposed to be a block of wood on the end of here. You're supposed to drill a hole in it and kind of embed a metal piece of tubing that sticks into the little cavity here so that you can get the positive pressure kind of referenced from inside of this hole. And then you're supposed to connect, of course, your pitot line to that into the airplane, to the airplane instruments. I'm kind of doing the same thing, but what I thought about doing was, why not just integrate the pitot tube connection into the actual hole where you're screwing the mount. There's a couple benefits of that, because of the way that it was originally designed, the hose would be connected to the nose cone. So if you remove the nose cone, you've got a hose to deal with that you really maybe can't disconnect, and unless you create some kind of quick disconnect. It's going to be hanging on the front of the airplane here with the pitot tube connected to it. And what I thought is, why not make a bracket that attaches on the airplane here, and then the bolt that goes through. What I thought about doing is just used an 1/8 inch NPT extension fitting that I basically cut the male threads off the end of it and rethread it for, let's say, 3/8 of an inch, and then actually bolt that extension to the front of the mount here, so that I could actually connect the pitot tube to the back side of that extension piece that would stick through here, and you'd still screw it on with a nut, but the hole down in the bottom there would actually be the center of the extension for the pitot tube connection. And then what happens is when you remove the nose cone, of course, all the pitot tube connections would stay in the airplane, and the nose would just unscrew from the extension on the end that was sticking out into that cavity. I think that's going to work really well. And then what I thought, well, what I'm going to do then with this nose piece, and I'd actually thought about this before I started the process, because I had already planned on there being an issue trying to create that post out of fiberglass. But what I thought is what I'm going to do is actually cut this little piece out and of aluminum, and then when I make the mold, I'll actually slip that over the post inside of the mold, and then fiberglass it all in together as one piece. So instead of epoxying this in afterwards, it will be embedded in the nose cone and come out with the nose cone when it's completed. And of course, this won't stick inside of the mold. It'll just slip off really easily because it's just aluminum sitting on top of the post in the mold. So anyway, this is coming along pretty well. I went ahead and cut out the sides, and to get a good accurate cut there, what I did is I measured on the airplane with a T-square down from the top of the skin down to this mount here for the engine mount, and then up from the bottom, and then I just drew marks with tape on here, and then I slowly started to cut it out. I did adjust it down just a little bit from where I originally had. You can see a mark there where it's that was one of my original marks, and I moved it down about a 1/16 of an inch. What actually happens because of the shape of this is as you put the nose cone on, it kind of moves down because of the curvature of this, kind of moves down the tube here, so it has a tendency to want to go down as you're going in. So it's one of the reasons that I cut it a little bit lower so that it would go on a little bit higher and kind of slide down until it fit. So anyway, I've got some trimming still left to do here. It's sticking out about the thickness of the fiberglass all the way around. So I'm just going to keep, because of the shape here, I can just keep sanding it down on the edges here, which will move it in further and further and further, and also make it narrower and shorter on the top. But I think it's going to fit really well once I get it trimmed, which is what I'm going to finish doing right now. But I wanted to show you this since I kind of got ahead of myself here on creating this mold. But the actual mold itself actually worked out really well. I'm very happy with the shape. Came out perfect. I went ahead and cut this out on the CNC machine with foam originally to create the plug. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to keep working on this, see if I can get this fit down perfect, and then I'm not going to worry about actually physically attaching it until a while later, because what I'm actually doing up here is I'm going to build a battery mount to mount a battery for all of my electronics in the airplane, because this airplane, since it's going to have very short flight times, my plan is to just have a complete discharge system, because I'm not going to have a generator or anything like that. But I needed to get weight on the front of this airplane anyway, because of these lightweight turbines. I'm about 10 to 15 pounds probably light on the nose, so I went and got a battery that's going to fit up here. I got to create a mount, and on the front of that battery mount is actually where I'm going to mount my pitot tube mount that I mentioned that it will connect to the front of the nose cone. So I got a lot of stuff to do on that, which will happen later on, but I just wanted to get the nose cone fit at this point and see if I can actually finish up both sides of these fairings that need to go on top of the engine mount. So let me go ahead and finish trimming the nose cone, and we'll get back into this a little bit later in the project when we finish up the pitot tube installation and the battery mount. So I finished sanding this down, so now I have a really nice fit on the upper skin here and on the side skins here at these corners, which I think is the most important for now. I do have a little bit of an overlap on the bottom where the nose cone is actually a little bit too tall. It's maybe a millimeter, I'm not really sure. I'm not too concerned about it, because what I need to do is I need to create some kind of lip on this cone that will fit hopefully inside of this little edge here that goes all the way around to try and hold it in when it's screwed in the front. So I think what I'm going to do is stop now at this point. I am going to look and see what I need to do to create some kind of lip in here. I might just create some fiberglass strips that I'll epoxy on the inside of here, just to create that small, maybe 3mm lip on the inside edge to make it sure so I get a nice fit onto frame one there. And then I can go back and actually sand either the top or the bottom edges, maybe to fair them in to the skin so that I don't have any kind of bump or lip that sticks over. But for now, this is good enough. It fits really well. And to get that to the correct shape, I just kept fitting it in place and then used a 2x4 with sandpaper on it and just did the 4 different edges, 4 different sides, and just kept whittling it down until it fit nicely against frame one. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can make a lip to go in here, and we can see if we can finish the fit on this. I don't think I'm gonna go much further than just getting it so that it fits nice and snug around frame one here, and we'll worry about finishing the actual mount once we get the battery installed and get the other things that need to be put in place here for the pitot-static system. I thought I'd put the fairing cover over the right side of the engine mount just to see how it fit, and it actually fits almost perfect along this nose cone. I got a little bit of a gap there. It's a little bit of a rough edge, but all I'm going to have to do is just go over it and just kind of touch it up a little bit, but otherwise it fits great. That's what it looks like on the bottom. Yeah, and I did try and make sure I kept it perpendicular to the center line of the airplane, and you can kind of see that reference here by the bolt sticking out on the end, which it's almost perfectly parallel with, so that's great. Now I can start bending the one for the left side. I thought I'd also show you underneath here, that's the gap or the little hole that you end up with where you cut the slot to fit over the engine mount. So you can see that that's going to have to be filled. But I think what I'm going to do is on the inside of the skin here, on the front of frame 1, I'm going to put a little aluminum tab to help guide the inside part of the nose cone here, and probably on the top of that tab I'll glue a little piece of fiberglass on here that fills that little hole when you push the nose cone in place. So there might be a little line there or something where the seam is, but that should be about it. So I just laid up about 4 layers of 7-ounce cloth just to make this flat sheet that I'm going to use for the lip that I'm going to create on the inside of the nose here. I squared up one edge of it with my sanding block, so now what I'm going to do, I think, is just go over to the table saw and just cut 3/4 inch strips. And then what I'm going to start off with, I think, is just gluing a strip underneath here along the top. And then because I have a nice square side on this side, I'm going to lay one on the side also. I'm going to do these 2 sides first, fit this in there, make sure it's tight, and then I want to adjust this other side here, or at least see where this ends up. I got it sticking out just a tiny bit down here at the bottom, and what I want to see is how that fit, see if that fit changes at all when I get these 2 sides in, because I want to make sure that it's not sticking out on one end when I glue that next lip in, because then I'll have to do some adjustments once it's actually glued into place. So let me go ahead and get these cut. Let me get a piece glued across the top and across this side, and get it trimmed and see if I can get this fit back in here. And we'll move on to the next 2. I've got 3 sides of the nose cone now fit really pretty well. I've got it sticking out a little bit at the bottom edge here, which I can just sand off the exterior of the nose cone now that I have a lip placed on the inside. I've got a little bit of an edge down here also on the bottom, but otherwise it fits really pretty well. And I'll show you here, if I pop it off, you'll see the fiberglass pieces that I epoxied on the inside of here just to create this tiny lip that you see here that then fits inside of the 3mm lip that I left on the front of frame 1 with the skins. And this fits on here pretty well. So what I'm going to do now, though, is I do have an issue on the bottom, and the bad thing is that I created it myself. When I originally created the plug for this, I kind of rough fit the plug on the front here. I cut it around the engine mounts, and I set it up to frame 1. And for some reason, the measurements that I took told me that the nose cone was wider than it was tall, so that if I trimmed it like I just did right now, I was going to end up short on the bottom. Well, so what I did is I actually added about 2mm, which is about the thickness of this popsicle stick, to the plug before I made the mold, and unfortunately that's exactly what I'm off now. On the bottom here I've got a lip that extends down about the thickness of this popsicle stick that I now need to remove, but I can't remove it because I'll remove through the skin that I've created with this. So what I'm going to do to fix it, and I'm going to have to fix the mold too, which is not that big a deal. I can just put in some layers of gel coat on top of the bottom of the mold, and then just sand and smooth it out. Again, it's a few hours worth of work, but it's better that it's too big than too small, I guess. But what I'm going to do down here on the bottom here is I'm just going to put up several layers of fiberglass. Unfortunately, you get about 1 to 1.25 millimeters of thickness for every 4 layers of 7-ounce glass. So it takes a lot of glass to build up thickness. But what I'm going to do on the very bottom here is I'm just going to layer up probably 8 layers of fiberglass on top of this to just thicken this bottom lip and, you know, taper it up into the nose cone a ways, so that I can actually sand the exterior of the cone to get it back down to the shape that it's supposed to be, so that it tapers into the bottom of the airplane. Again, it's a little bit of work, but again, got to get it right. So that's what I'm going to work on now, is just put in the layers of fiberglass inside of this. It's going to have to dry overnight before I can really sand it, but I'll just taper this then down in and sand it, and then I'll glue the lip in on the bottom. And, you know, the fit will be really good by the time I get done with that, especially once I sand the exterior down a little bit and just taper it in to the skin. So yeah, it'll fit good by the time I'm done. But again, I created more work for myself because I added that thickness to the bottom of the mold thinking it was off, and it actually wasn't. It probably would have been perfect if I just left it alone. So let me go work on this a little bit more, and I'll show you what it looks like when I get those layers of glass in there and get it sanded down.
So I finished putting the laminations on the bottom side of the nose cone here. Since I made the assumption that it would fit, I went ahead and epoxied in the little lip on the bottom side also, and you can see I've got actually a very good fit now. It's pretty snug both on sides and the top, so quite happy with it. So if I pull it off here, you can see on the inside here I ended up putting about 8 layers of fiberglass on the bottom just to build this lip up, which you can see now is quite a bit thicker than the normal thickness. And it seems to fit really well now. So the 8 layers that I put on here, what I did is I just tapered them on the way back. So the first piece I put along the front here was 1.5 inches, I think, you know, thick or deep. And then I added 1/2 inch to each layer that I put on until I got back about halfway on the nose cone. And I think what I'm going to do on the outside here is I'm just going to take a belt sander and just run a belt sander up and down it until I thin down this lip on the front here, you know, to meet up with the skin so that it's not overhanging. But it does fit pretty well now. I'm actually quite happy with it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sand that down, and we'll be pretty much done with the nose cone. I will have to do some brackets probably around frame 1 just to keep it in there and make sure that you know, in the center here it's pushed up on all 4 sides. And, you know, because we have this cutout down here, this is, you know, not supported here, so I'll probably put again another aluminum tab inside of there to just hold it. And I do have to shave a little bit off the outside here to taper this into the fuselage. There's a little bit of an overlap. I don't have it in there all the way. But there's a little bit of an overlap because the skin thickness is actually thinner than the thickness of the step that I have in there. But I kind of planned that so that I'd have a little bit of space to, you know, shave down the outside of it until it got nice and flush. So that's the plan for that. So I'm going to go ahead and sand that down on the bottom and just finish up the final fit here. I'll come back later and you know, just sand down the whole outside of this. I've got a few bubbles that I ended up with on the corner that just need to be filled. But otherwise it looks great, so I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. So yeah, let me go ahead and sand down the bottom of that and finish it up. Just a comment, I did the nose cone also in that same silver color that I painted the back there. This turned out amazing. I'm very, very pleased with it's not even screwed in, it's literally just sitting on top of there, but the finish of this turned out really, really nice.